Hi, I'm Katy Brand, and my book is called I Carried a Watermelon, and it's partly a memoir about me and my life, particularly as a teenage girl, and it's also a love letter to the film Dirty Dancing, which is one of my favourite films of all time. I was obsessed with it between the ages of 11 and 13. I must have watched it 120 times over the course of my life, most of those done in those first 2 years of my obsession, but several times since. And the book is really an analysis of the film itself, all of the themes, the rite of passage story for girls, fathers and daughters, your first sexual experience, how to trust people, how to stand up for yourself, how to learn who you are independent from where you've come from, all of those sort of things in the book. And also just some silly stories about me and what I've learnt through Dirty Dancing through my life. And so it's about me through the prism of Dirty Dancing, and hopefully there'll be a lot in it that you could maybe relate to as well. I'm here in Waterstones, Piccadilly, and I would like to tell you about three of my favourite books. The first of which is this one here, The Secret Diary of Adrien Mole, aged 13 3/4 by Sue Townsend. Now, I'm sure many of you know this book and have read it probably at least once, maybe quite a long time ago, but it is really worth a reread because I've reread this recently and it is just as funny as I remember it. In fact, I would say it's funnier than I remember it. And, you know, it's about Adrien Mole, this frustrated teenager who feels that his life is destined for greater things than really that he's experiencing in his family life. So he has the constant frustrations of his family that he feels are holding him back from his immense career in poetry writing and television. And it's just a really universally, I think, relatable book. I think we've all felt as teenagers that really we're a bit more special than our surroundings are giving us credit for. I know I did. And the jokes are just fantastic. It is one of the funniest books you will ever read. And what's the great thing about this is that it grows with you through life. So when I've reread it as an adult, I've laughed at different things than I laughed at when I first read it as a teenager. And I think that is the hallmark of just a fantastic book. It's a work of genius. It's one of the funniest things ever written. So the second book I'd love to recommend to you, which is one of my favourites of all time, is this, Portnoy's Complaint by Philip Roth. It's not for everyone, but I love it. It's very shocking in terms of the sexual content. It was his first book, or at least it was the book that really made his name as an author and then became one of the greatest and most respected authors in English literature. But this is about a young man who has what is called Portnoy's Complaint, which is a constant need to satisfy himself sexually on his own if necessary, or in a bag of chopped liver on a bus if necessary, as the famous scene goes. And it made me laugh so much the first time I read it. It is outrageous. It's very funny. It's actually quite different to a lot of Philip Roth's later work, so I don't always recommend it to people as a place to start, unless I know them quite well. But I know people have difficulties with Philip Roth, particularly about the way he depicts women, but I've never had a problem with that really, because I've always related to his main character, even if it's a man. And now I'm not saying that I constantly satisfied my own urges on the top of a bus, but that sort of sense of going into someone's sort of slightly traumatized psychology and just finding what makes them tick and their compulsive needs and how that may be influenced by their parents and their life and their surroundings. I think it's a really interesting and vivid depiction and analysis of that, and it's also really, really funny. So that's my second recommendation. So my third and final recommendation is this, Polo by Jilly Cooper. I could have picked any of Jilly Cooper's books, really, particularly the early ones, but I picked this one because it was the first Jilly Cooper book I read when I was about 20. It was given to me by a boyfriend of mine at the time, and I just hoovered this up. I remember sitting in a bath in a house in Scotland and basically not wanting to get out of the bath until I finished it, so I got pretty cold. But I was warmed inside by how funny and witty and just sort of jolly her prose is. I always felt like if I was feeling a bit down or a bit bleak about life, if I pick up a Jilly Cooper, if I pick up Polo and I start reading it, I just start to feel just better about things. You know, there's the people in this fictional county of Rutshire, and they're all kind of having affairs and they're all completely insatiable, and there's rivalries and treachery and revenge, and then obviously they're the horses, which are more important to Jilly Cooper, I think, than the people in some respects. And it's just a really fun, bumptious world of glamour and sort of, you know, shepherd's pie in old cottages and competitions where kind of eventually the real hero wins, and it just sort of restores a natural sense of order to the world somehow. And I love Jilly Cooper. She's got my heart forever.